Genesis chapter 1, verse number 20, the beginning of day 5. And God said, crooked here. God didn't say crooked, I said crooked, okay. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly. Now watch this carefully. The waters brought forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl, that would be birds, that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. When I was a new Christian, I'd just been saved for a couple of months, and my parents sent me to the Methodist church camp in Bloomington, Illinois. The counselor sat us all down on the beds in the bunks, and he said, hey guys, I want you to know I'm a humanist. I didn't know what that meant. I said, well, do you believe the Bible? He said, no, the Bible's got contradictions in it. And he showed me this verse. He said, Kent, what did God make the birds out of? I said, he made them out of the water. We'll see later when in chapter number 2, he makes them out of the ground. And we'll get into that supposed contradiction. It is not a contradiction, but we'll cover that in about a year from now when we get up to chapter 2. Okay. Let the waters bring forth abundantly. Remember that the moving creature and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. Well, here the Bible tells us what the firmament is. It's the place where the birds fly. Remember earlier it said there'd be water above the firmament back in chapter 1, verse 6 and 7. Water above where the birds fly. Now that water happens to be gone. Hovind theory is there was a canopy of ice, a couple inches thick, 3 fingers thick is what the Jews have taught. And I found, I think, 4 quotes on that now. Probably 10 miles up, which at this scale is the thickness of the paper, okay? I mean, it's real thin. But 10 miles up, roughly, I think that all the air that's now 60 miles was compressed down to maybe 10, which would maybe raise air pressure at the surface, you know, 10, 15, 20%. I have not done the math on that. But I know if you climb a tall mountain 5 miles up, it's tough to breathe on top of Mount Everest, and that's only 5 miles. So, and if you go up just in the hills of Kentucky, you can get up, you know, a couple thousand feet, and air's kind of thin, hard to breathe, and you're only half mile up. So, compressing the air, adding 20% or maybe 30% would really help a lot of things, and we cover that on our DVD number 2. Anyway, he said, so the birds fly in the firmament, and the Bible interprets itself. Verse 21, and God created great whales. Now watch this carefully. Here's another one that scoffers like to pick on. And every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth. Dave, you can move over there and you won't have to break your neck to see around my screen here. Oh, yeah, there. That the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind. You're going to see this phrase, after their kind, 10 times in the first chapter. It must be important. God's telling us something here. You see it 10 more times in the flood story, Genesis 6 and 7. So they bring forth after their kind, not after their species, after their kind. And every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. So what is this about the whales? Well, let's see. If you read the book of Jonah, Jonah chapter 1. Jonah ran from the Lord, and anytime you run away from God's calling on your life, you're asking for trouble. And he's about to go to Whale Seminary for a couple days and get educated to, God says, Jonah, go to Nineveh. Instead, he goes the other way, gets on a ship, goes down to Tarsus, down to the ship, down in the belly of the ship. You keep going down, down, down when you start running from the Lord. It's down, down. One thing after another will happen. Just do what God says. It's real simple. Read the book and obey it. Anyway, the Lord had prepared a what? A great fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the what? The fish 3 days and 3 nights. By the way, it does not say he lived in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. I think he died. And God brought him back. There have been stories of people getting swallowed by a whale and living for 2 days. The one guy in 1890 that was in the whale's sinus cavity, apparently, and I forget the story. It circulates all over the internet. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't think Jonah had to live in the fish's belly. But God, in Jonah, it calls it a fish. Chapter 2, then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God out of the fish's belly. By the way, when you are experiencing punishment from running for God, that's a good time to talk to the Lord and say, Lord, I'm sorry. He had enough time to pray and say, I really blew it, Lord. Lord, I got a royal problem here. I'm in the bottom of the ocean, in the bottom of a fish, a big fish. Interesting. Verse 10, and the Lord spake unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah upon the dry land. Now, when you read the story in Matthew chapter 12, then certain of the scribes and of the Pharisees answered, saying, Master, we would see a sign from thee. But he answered and said unto them, An evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, but there shall no sign be given it, but the sign of the prophet Jonas. For as Jonas was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Skeptics say, aha, see, whales are not fish. Whales are mammals. Okay. Who decided that? The whale? No. Carolus Linnaeus, 1735, wrote a book, and he wrote several books after that, and made up what is today the basis of our classification system. And somebody decided if it breathes air, gives milk, bears live young, has hair, it's in the mammal category. Okay, well that's just happened in the last 300 years, that dividing line. I don't think God divides them that way. Obviously, he considers a whale in the fish category. So who's wrong, God or Carolus Linnaeus? Carolus Linnaeus is wrong. Now, if you can divide, we could divide animals all sorts of ways. We could divide animals and classify them based on how long they live, if we wanted, or classify them based on how many children they have, or based on what they eat. I mean, come on. It's a purely arbitrary thing, this classification system with the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So God said it was a whale, and in his mind, that's the same as a fish. And I think to a 5-year-old, hey, it swims in the water, it's a big fish. So it's not a contradiction. It's an example of where our modern classification system is not the same as God's classification system, but don't let anybody tell you that's a contradiction or it's not scientific. This was written way before Carolus Linnaeus was ever thought of. So, anyway, verse 22, back to Genesis. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters in the seas. What is the first command God gave to the fish and the birds? Go have a bunch of kids, right? And that is the greatest drive he gave to every species on the planet. It's kind of burned into the brain. This is love bug season around here. Do you guys collect any coming down from Wisconsin?
All over the woodshed.
You should. They have one thing on their mind this time of year, don't they? And the deer do during rutting season. I mean, nothing else on their mind. And that's fine. That's the way. And God made it. But he also put some rules down. For the humans, anyway. Don't commit adultery. No fornication. I mean, God can put the rules down. He's the guy who created it. He's the guy who made the drive. And he's the guy that put the rules on it. So, read it and follow the rules. Anyway, so God blessed him and said, Be fruitful, multiply, fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the 5th day. So that's day 5. He made the stuff in the water and the birds on the land, and he made them out of the water. Later we'll see in chapter 2, he made a few more birds and animals out of the land. Not a contradiction. Chapter 2 is only describing what took place in the garden on day 6, not day 5. And only for Adam to select a wife and name the animals. It wasn't at all. The rest of the world's already full of critters. This is one more of each one. We'll cover that later on. So, that was day 5. Verse 24. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature. So what do you make the animals out of? Earth. What do you make the birds out of? Water. Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. By the way, all of human history is going to be, God is going to answer to God, and it's going to be fine. Simple message. Read what God says to do and do it. It's not complicated. It's really relatively simple. You said do that, God? Okay, doesn't make sense, but okay, I'll do it. So, he made them after their kind. Verse 25. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and the cattle after their kind, everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. So far, everything's been good, 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 good. At the end of the chapter, he says it was very good. But it's not very good if it's not done yet. Verse 26. And God said, let us. Let what?
Us.
Us. Who's the us? Let us make man in our image. Who's the our? This is the first introduction, well, maybe the second introduction, into a very interesting topic about the Trinity. A guy called me today and talked for a while I was driving around running errands. He said, I don't understand the Trinity. I said, I don't either. I don't understand gravity. I don't. What on earth is pulling this thing down? I don't know. Give me a jar of gravity and paint it red while you're at it. Brother, you're quite the science geek. What is gravity? To say it's the attraction of masses doesn't really tell me what it is. Can you cut it with a knife? I mean, could I hold this and, cut it under here, chainsaw, and now gravity's not... How does gravity know where this is? If this ink pen was created out of nothing, instantly, 5 miles up in the air, how long would it take to start falling? Instantly. How did gravity find it so fast? I don't know, but it works, okay? And I don't need to know. I believe it. I'm using it right now. Sitting on the chair, yeah. Using it right now. So, I don't understand the Trinity, but I can tell you the Bible teaches it. I can show it to you. Let us make man in our image. We'll come back to that. In 1 John chapter 5, way at the end of the Bible, you got the book of John, and then you got 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. So don't confuse those. 1 John, way at the end, short book, 5 chapters. Who is he that overcometh the world, but he that believeth that Jesus is the Son of God? This is he that came by water and blood, even Jesus Christ, not by water only, but by water and blood. It is the Spirit that beareth witness, because the Spirit is truth. Remember in Genesis chapter 1, the first 3 verses talk about the Father and the Word, that would be Jesus Christ, and the Spirit of God moving upon the face of the water. So you got the Trinity in the first 3 verses, the Trinity being taught. I don't think the human brain can absorb some things. I don't think our brain is capable of absorbing eternity. I don't think we can get that. How long would it take you to explain colors to a blind man? Try it sometime. Somebody blind from birth, try to explain the difference between pink and green and blue. Where would you start? He doesn't have the ability to get... See, your brain is like the computer, and there's 5 entrances in. I can access my computer through the mouse, through the keyboard, through a couple external ports, but if you cut one of those things, you can't access it. You got 5 entrances into your brain, and if you cut one of those wires, you're not going to get certain information. If you cut your optic nerve, you're not going to get information from your eyes to the brain. People that are deaf cannot get the information of sounds into their brain, the wire's cut, or when something's wrong. Now suppose there are more. We've only got 5 senses that we know of, maybe unless you want to count sense of balance, etc. But what if there's more? And what if they're all connected? What if we get to heaven and God expands our vision where you can see the sounds, or hear the colors, or smell the colors, or taste them? Blue. Wow. I don't know. I think eye hath not seen nor ear heard, neither hath entered into the heart of man the things God hath prepared for them that love him. I think we're headed for a royal treat to the senses, and that's just those 5. Maybe there are more. I don't know. But I know this, with our limited senses, it's pretty obvious there's some things we can't comprehend unless we have that sense of sight. You can't comprehend colors without the sense of sight. I'm sorry, you ain't going to get it. So maybe we just can't comprehend the doctrine of the Trinity, but I can show it to you. I can't explain it to you. Here we have 1 John chapter 5, and he says in verse 7, For there are 3 that bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost. And these 3 are one. Now this verse is gone from all the New Bible versions, because the Alexandrian cult down in Egypt that made the Alexandrian manuscript did not believe in the Trinity. So they combined verse 7 and 8 and shortened it down to about 7 words. For there are 3 that bear record, and that's all it says. Verse 8, There are 3 that bear witness in earth, the Spirit, the water, and the blood, and these 3 agree in one. Check any New Bible version, 1 John 5:7. It won't say that. because they don't agree with the Trinity doctrine. I don't understand it, but the Bible teaches the Trinity. Let's go to John chapter 1. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, one of the Gospels. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in the Trinity, so they added the word a in there and made that a small g. The Word was a God. Well, by definition, there can only be one God. It's not a Senate or Congress. This is God we're talking about. So it says the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. Wait a minute. The Word was God and the Word was with God. You understand that, Hovind? Nope, not at all. I've been trying for 48 years. Brother, do you understand that? How long have you been a Christian?
Just started again today.
Started again today. Okay, good answer. I've been studying this till my brain hurts, brother. I can't get it. I'd like to. Have you ever had a problem where you study it and you think about it, all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I get it. Wow, I see it. I saw that all the time when I taught school, especially mathematics. You get some kid, you're trying to do a problem on the board, and they, I don't get it, I don't get it. I'll say, oh, now I see. You know, why didn't I see that before? You see, the lights come on. I think we're going to get up to heaven and be there about 2 seconds and say, oh, now I see. But right now, I don't see, and I wish I did. I'm trying, okay? I'm trying. So the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him. No, wait a minute. All things were made by the Word. I thought Genesis 1 says God created the heaven and the earth. That's correct. Well, now it says the Word made all things. That's correct. For without Him was not anything made that was made. So he's claiming He made everything. Skip down to verse 14. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. Well, who is that? That's Jesus Christ. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory. The glory is of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. That's what it says. Now, the question is, do I dumb down the Bible to my intellect, or do I try to raise my intellect to the Bible? Most of these new Bible perversions are trying to dumb down the Word to where we understand it, and I think I understand their motive. A, they're dealing with the wrong manuscript, and B, I don't think you change God's words. In the book of Nehemiah, chapter 8, verse 8, they read the word of the Lord and gave the sense and caused the people to understand. Those are the 3 steps. Just read it like it says it. Then explain it. But don't put your explanation in there as if that is the Word. No, that is not the Word. That's your explanation of the Word. Nehemiah 8:8 gives the formula to do that. Anyway, so the Word was with God. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. That would be Jesus Christ. How about Acts chapter 20? In the book of Acts, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts chapter 20, verse 28. Take heed therefore unto yourselves and to all the flock, over the which the Holy Ghost hath made you overseers, to feed the church of God, which He hath purchased with His own blood. Who did what here? God purchased the church with His own blood. What does that mean? Well, Jesus was God in the flesh. Whether I understand it and whether you understand it doesn't matter. That's what it says. Now, right next to Acts 20:28, in one of my Bibles, I forget which one, I keep track of all other verses I find that deal with this doctrine of the Trinity. I could put 50, or probably put 100 of them up here. All through the Bible, you see these verses scattered around that indicate Jesus was God. That's what it says. Okay, I'll let you wrestle with it for 48.7 years like I have and see if you can figure it out. But meanwhile, I just believe it. I just trust Dad. I'm holding his hand. Let's cross the street, son. Okay, Dad, you lead the way. Let's go. I don't have to watch for cars. I'm holding Dad's hand. It's Dad's job to watch for cars. Okay, so back to Genesis 1. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God created He him. Male and female created He them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Same command and same result. Okay, and here says replenish the earth. I cover in my video number 2 about the so-called gap theory and about the day-age theory and about the ruin restoration theory. Some people take this word replenish and say, see, God had to make it again. No, we'll cover that tomorrow night.